Good morning, everyone. This is Brian Hunter with NCSI. I'd like to welcome everyone for joining today. I'd also like to welcome Brad Evans with Okta. Hi there, Brad.
Hi, Brian. Happy to be here.
So thanks, everyone, for coming. Today we're going to be talking about Okta and getting kind of a quick overview of the Okta platform. It's going to help solve some of our single sign-on, multi-factor, and password reset issues. So just some quick housekeeping. Everyone is on mute, so we can't hear you. If you do have questions, please type them in the question and answer box. I'm going to be monitoring that through and able to ask those questions to Brad. So please type it out as we go through. So go ahead and take it away, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. My name again is Brad Evans. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer at Okta, and I'm starting into my 6th year there. So that's my pedigree here. What I'd like to talk to you guys about today is the Okta Identity Cloud. As you see on screen here, the Okta Identity Cloud is made up of several different components. The piece that we're most well known for is the single sign-on piece. I'm going to go into that heavily in the demonstration, so how users can log in once and use that identity to access their additional services. With that, though, we're also going to layer in the extra security there, because we're a security company, where necessary to add in features like multi-factor authentication, or just checking users' authentication against a policy and a rule to determine if they are supposed to be doing what they're doing. At the top of the screen, these are the business issues and initiatives that we solve for. So these are things that you would see as you go through your company initiatives. So wanting to increase the speed of how you handle services there, reducing IT friction to make that happen, or just simply moving more to the cloud. So as a lot of our customers are doing, moving to the cloud is move the perimeter of security outside of the 4 walls, and Okta can help with that in a secure way. So that's really all I wanted to cover on this particular side. You can see on there that there's quite a bit of services we do. What I'm going to focus today is really on what we call the business to employee, or the BDE solution. We do have B2B and B2C solutions, but that's a little bit out of scope for today. So that was the one slide I wanted to cover, and I'm going to jump into the real product here so we can see it in action. So what I've done is I've switched over to my demo instance of Okta, and by going to the URL for my demo instance, it's now asking me to authenticate for the first time, so primary authentication. Now, from here, I'm going to enter in my credentials, and those credentials can be checked against an Active Directory or LDAP service. It can be checked against Okta's Universal Directory. We can have a mix of those. It's really a combination of things, whatever works best for the customer. Now, after primary authentication, when I hit enter here, it's going to make sure that my credentials are correct. Now, because I'm not in my regular office, I'm on the road today, it is actually going to then check against a policy to say, you, Brad, have to present a second form of authentication. So in that, what it's asking you for now is my second factor, and I'm using a service called Okta Verify. It's a free app for iOS here, as you can see on screen. So over in the right-hand corner, you see I've got an approve/deny option. So since I sent it, I know that's me. I go ahead and tap approve. And now it's asking me to go even one step further so that someone sitting at my desk can't just hit approve. When my phone lights up, I have to put in my thumbprint there to actually get through and get to my home page. So second factor can be applied as I just demonstrated at a login, but it can also be applied when you launch a sign-on into an application. So in this case, for my Salesforce app, I do have access to it. You saw it on my screen, but since I'm a systems administrator for this service, it's now asking me to step up my authentication so that I can prove as an administrator that I am who I am. So similar thing there. I go ahead and tap approve, and it's going to let me go ahead and continue on. So that's demonstrating actually 2 different pieces. Single sign-on, so I don't have to now put in any other authentication in to get to my instance of Salesforce. It just simply says, since Okta has already verified this user's identity, go ahead and pass in a SAML assertion. SAML stands for Security Assertion Markup Language. Pass in the SAML assertion the identity and the token that was already generated from Okta, so I don't have to re-authenticate. So single sign-on, again, our flagship product, we rolled that out first of all things back in 2010 or so. The ability here to either go to Okta's homepage like you see here and quickly get to the application. So if I wanted to get to my collaboration tool, same thing, it sends a SAML assertion, I'm in. So the idea of SSO for the end user is about efficiency. I don't have to hunt for URLs. I don't have to remember lots of credentials. And those things are just presented for me here in a pick list that I can continue to do my work. Now, with SSO, though, there are also applications that aren't federated, they don't have the current technologies. So if I were to look at Expensify as an example, you'll notice here, as I click on Expensify, you'll see a login screen pop up. My credentials are automatically put into those screens, and the enter button is selected for me. So the difference there is that's what we call a forms post or a secure web authentication, where we store the user's credentials for a user in an encrypted fashion for that particular instance. And then when the user clicks on that, we'll go ahead and decrypt those and post them for them to move things on. Now, with SSO, with the single sign-on part, there's no limit to how many applications you can assign to a user, but typically it's done by what role you're in, what sort of group. So if you're in sales or marketing, IT, etc., your user panel will look slightly different. Now, when assigned those apps, they come up and they show up as an object inside the user's homepage here. But you'll notice on screen here, I've got one app that's showing I've been assigned this app, but it's in a locked state. So conditionally, again, using our rules engine to say, if this particular user is in a situation or is logging in from an unknown location like I am, I'm logging in from a hotel room, it doesn't know where I'm coming from. It doesn't have that as a source it's expecting. So because this might have protected data, it's actually been locked out, this particular instance of it. So I can get here to the employee portal, but for the administrative side, I've been locked out because it just doesn't see me. Sorry, it doesn't recognize my login, and therefore the risk is too high, and I've been blocked. So there are two examples here of security settings. One is the multi-factor you saw. One is just simply saying, no, you can't get there from here. I didn't unassign it from the user, but they cannot actually access it. So single sign-on and multi-factor go hand in hand. They're typically bundled together in Okta so that you have some multi-factor built right into single sign-on, but you can choose to extend that to include other contextual access. So contextual access would include things like, did you log in from San Diego and then 5 minutes later try to log in from New York, right? That's just physically impossible to do that from a time perspective. There's also checks in here for whether or not the device that you're using is a trusted device. Does it have a certificate, or has it been, is it being protected by an MDM, a mobile device management system? So we look for things like that. We also look at, for certain apps like Office 365, we'll look to see if that particular client is being used. So is it the thick client, or is it a web client? Are they using a mobile app? So we'll check for things like that and let you make decisions based on that criteria. Now, as we roll forward with multi-factor, as we continue to add features to it in the context, world of context, contextual access management, I can get that out. The additional pieces that you'll see in there will include things like what time of day, is this a normal work hour for you? Is what you're doing normal for you from a behavioral standpoint? In other words, if I work typically from 9 in the morning until 6 at night, but this access or this authentication is coming in at, say, 2 in the morning, that's not normal behavior for me. It's not in my standard access behavior. So because it's outside of behaviors, then we can take action on what to do when that happens. So I'll stop there right now, Brian, see if there's any questions in the Q&A part.
Yeah, we got a couple questions so far. The first one has to do with multi-factor. They say they already have something multi-factor like RSA. Can that be integrated into Okta?
Great question, and yes, yes you can. So I'll switch out real quick from the administrative side, and I'll touch on that just to show you what that would look like. So when we configure things for, say, RSA, right, and we want to add the RSA piece in, notice right here it's grayed out because RSA is something that Okta needs to go out and communicate with. So we'll need to know how to communicate to the host that your RSA is running off of, any ports that are out there in the shared secret, and then we communicate between the two. Okta still sets the rules and the policy. We just ask RSA to check the value of the second factor that we collect from the user.
All right, and I have one more question here. It had to do with the password manager that you showed with Expensify that isn't SAML. Can that be used for personal access as well as corporate, or both?
So the answer is yes, it can be used for personal. Now, that's a choice. So some of our customers choose to not allow their employees to add any of their standard apps, their apps. So I of course have it turned on, and I have set my credentials for some of the work adjacent apps that I use, like travel sites, so airlines, hotel chains, rental cars, etc. Now, that usually brings up a secondary question though. So if Okta is storing your personal information about your own app, is that information available to, say, the administrator that's running your account? And the answer there is no. The administrator cannot see your credentials, can't spoof it as you. It would lock the user out, and there is no way to see it unless you are the user itself. So let me explain that a little bit. I have turned on a feature that allows me to go see what my password is. The beauty of Okta is that you don't have to remember passwords. And the problem with Okta saving passwords is you don't know what they are. You've forgotten them over time. And that kind of goes back to Brian's earlier point on password, being able to change passwords in here, and I'll cover that in just a second. But if you were, say, changing roles and you no longer needed access, maybe if I moved into an office job instead of traveling, I wouldn't need Southwest anymore, but I still want to have it just in case. So I can ask it to reveal my password, and that will allow me to use that. Like, oh, right, that's what it is when I need to use it after the app is gone. Now that really sort of leads in. I'm sorry, that was part of the question. What was the other part?
Just whether you can use personal or corporate or both. So I think
got it. Yeah. So when we store, as I said, when we take those credentials and we store them, it's stored in a 256-bit AES encryption key that is specific to that user in your instance of Okta. Now, even an Okta administrator, the administrators in support, our Okta support team, can't log in and see that information either. Right? What your admin would see is that someone, not a who, but someone has added Southwest Airlines onto their homepage and has used it some number of times. So we keep track of number of usage and that it's out there, but not who actually has it, and nor can they see the credentials. Now for corporate apps like you saw with Expensify, there are a couple of choices you have when you create the connections to these apps on where and who provides that information, provides the login information. So that's best shown actually from a screenshot here. So let me jump real quick into Expensify. So Expensify, I've set that up to allow users to log in, but you'll notice here my choice in this set of 5 choices is that the administrator sets the username and password. So I have, as an administrator, created an account for my user, Brad, in Expensify, but I did not tell Brad what his credentials were. I actually set those on his behalf in the app so that if for some reason Brad decided to leave or was a disgruntled employee, I'm not sure what a gruntled employee is, but a disgruntled employee is one that you want to make sure they don't have access to services so they don't do anything untoward. So in this case, I set that on their behalf, so they don't even know what that is. I wouldn't be able to extract any of that or use it after the fact. Now, one of the good points, as long as I'm here, is that once you disable the Okta account, all those things on the home page are disabled. We can even remove, in certain applications, remove the user's ability to access the app outside of Okta. So let me touch on this a little bit. So if the user has their credentials, they'll set them. This I said already. If it's part and part, the administrator sets part of it and the user does the rest. If it's the same as their Okta login, so maybe it's a password that's used, it's their network password anyway, we can just pass that through. Or we have the ability to share an app. So think of a corporate Twitter account or a corporate Facebook account where you're able to go post company information, but everybody logs in as one user, as admin one or something. And so you set those credentials here and then just assign it to the folks who log in. That's just the way that we capture those credentials. And then, as I said, they're either stored in Okta or you enter them in here and it's stored.
One question, would this be useful for administrative accounts like AWS?
It is, actually. That's a great point. So you can set up multiple instances for administrative accounts to AWS because different administrators have different access to that app. Now, the way I actually specified mine is that I set up one account. I only have one account, so that one app user is in here, but I have configured myself for multiple roles within AWS. So these roles, of course, tell me what I'm allowed to do in there, so I have specifics of where I can go within here. And that's how I break mine down. But there is, yes, an ability to store any number of administrator access points into AWS. Now, just to sort of round this out, and I don't want to belabor what we do here. Part of what Okta does to help your IT staff is to remove the need to do password reset. Most common ticket created in IT, it's the most time-consuming and the most costly. And this is not coming from me. This is just statistics we get from our customers that run help desks. So by removing, two things. You can remove the need to remember passwords. So we'll go ahead and take those and store them. So you're not going, I haven't used this app for a while. Now I don't remember what the password is. I've got to go ask for it to be reset. That's part of it. The other part is on certain applications that you have, when you are required to change the password. So sometimes your app says, hey, 60, 90 days, whatever it is, that's all you get. You have to change your password on a regular basis. So in that case, Okta has a plugin, and I'll just hover over it up here at the top. The plugin is specific for the browser type. And when you get to an app that requires you to change that password, Okta will pop up a wizard that says, do you want us to suggest for you a new strong password? So it would have some number of letters and characters. And so you can specify how long that should be. So if you're like me, trying to remember a new password or trying to come up with a new password, you're just trying to twist the ones you already use so it's not so readily apparent. And by the way, if you try and use password, one of the features we have in Okta is you try and use the common ones, the ones that are easy for hackers to guess. You're going to get a notice from Okta saying that's a password that's not useful, right? It's unsecure. Like trying to type in password with dollar signs and maybe a 1 at the end. That's not going to work. Those are easily guessed. So that's part of it. When you change the password and click Save, it'll actually push the new password into Okta, so you don't have to do it in 2 places. So that's at the application layer. There's also an ability. Let's just use a different use case. You are a remote employee. You log into the network every once in a while, but you don't have to do it every day. So since it's not a common thing, you might forget that network login. In that case, if you can't get into the network, you can't get to anything, right? Everything's locked down for you, and that's really lost time until you get IT to fix it for you. But if you were to actually get yourself into a situation where you've forgotten that, or maybe you tried a certain password too many times. I've done that myself, where I was absolutely certain I had the password correct, so I tried it 5 times, then it locked my account. In that case, again, I'm non-productive. But in those circumstances, we can go even to that level, at the Active Directory LDAP level, or your login, and go through a process to change that as well. So for my case, it's going to make sure I am who I am. That doesn't just simply say, oh yeah, go ahead, change your password. If it's you, I trust you. So I'm going to go ahead and do this by SMS. I'll get an SMS code that'll come up on my screen. So now it's just sending it to my email address. So just to make a short story long here, there's two-step process for that. You get a prompt to who are you, and of course now I get the verification code. It's not like it's really anything quick or anything. Verify that code. Secondary prompt in my case is a security question, so I'm going to say I hated liver as a child, still do. I'm going to go ahead and change the password. So what I'm showing here is a self-service way of getting yourself back to being productive without having to involve your IT staff. And that in a lot of our customers' cases is a tremendous, sorry. It let me back in with a new password, but now it's saying you have to do second factor. So it's just double whammying here. So you'll see that that's the same thing I had to do when I logged in last time. And I'll go ahead and log me in. So again, password resets or the ability to do self-service password changes with Okta is going to do two things. It'll increase the efficiency of your staff, getting them back online quicker, and it reduces the amount of password resets done by the IT staff and the cost that's associated with that. So I'll stop there. Brian, any other questions that we have
a question here saying, can you customize that password reset, for example, not allowing SMS, things like that?
You can. Actually, that's a great question. You can block off SMS as one of the choices there and just make it email specifically. That's an option setting that you have. The one thing that we are changing is that we still are hard-coded into that security question. What we're introducing into the service is the ability to have several questions and they rotate. So it still has to be a security question, but we like you do with your bank, right? You get a different question different times that you log in. That's not available yet today, but that's what we're rolling toward.
Okay, I've got one more question here.
Sure.
Will this reset the password for Active Directory?
It will, and I'm sorry I didn't make that clear. If you are authenticating to Okta through your Active Directory, that will in fact write your new password back to AD, letting you back on the network. If you've locked your account, that's the other option you'll see. There's an unlock. I'm not sure if you saw that when I was showing it. Unlock my account does the same thing. You reset your password and it changes or flips the lock flag back. So yes, Active Directory and LDAP both.
So I'd like to wrap this up. Tell everyone, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you attending. We are going to record this webinar and put it up on YouTube if you want to kind of replay it and kind of look at the different steps that we went through. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Brad, very much for giving us a run through the product, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks.